Sup? We're live. Oh, wait. Hello? Now my mic's... Oh, it is... What? It is working. It's just really delayed. That's really weird. Okay. We're good then. All right. What's up? Bob, I'm going to switch it over to your screen so you can kind of take over a little bit. So let me turn the music down a little bit more.
We're live. We're good to go. Hello, everybody. Greetings. Welcome back. Today it's just Evan and myself, and I wanted to take today's opportunity to... Looks like our construction worker is going to come in. No, we're not going to take that opportunity, but he is going to make some noise. Thank you. Appreciate it. So today I want to show you guys how to thermally tune a laptop. And of course, I'm going to feature one of ours, the MECH-17 GP2 with the 4080. Everything that I'm going to show you guys today, though, will apply to your laptop. Should you have something else, it's just going to be a lot easier to do on this machine, which is really nice. And we're going to showcase where to set PL1 and PL2 for the Intel CPU. And we'll do this in Doom Eternal and Battlefield 2042. And there's going to be some different requirements for CPU power load for those two titles. And show you what you can expect from a performance standpoint, how to look at the Rivatuner overlay, those performance statistics, so then you can just be a little bit better informed as to how your hardware can work with the software. Okay. Evan said timeout. So what kind of feedback were we getting on the audio?
It might be better now.
Okay.
Go again. Wait, time.
There's no timeout in live streaming.
All right. I think I fixed it now, so I'm going to have Bob continue what he was talking about, and then hopefully it's better now. So go ahead again, Bob.
All right. What kind of feedback were we getting from the comment section? We're good to go? Okay, so let me start over. Today's stream is just going to feature Evan and myself, and I'm going to show you guys how to thermal tune a laptop. Now, I'm going to feature the MECH-17 GP2 with the 4080, and everything that I'm going to show you here today can oftentimes be applied to other laptops outside the Eluktronics brand. It's just going to be very easy to do on this system because of the real-time wattage control that we have, and you may have to do some things outside of what I show you here in order to make the PL1 and PL2 changes. Don't worry if a lot of this is over your head. There will be timestamps. I'm going to be very thorough and explain everything that I'm doing today and why. We're going to go ahead and use the MSI Afterburner and the Riva Tuner overlay so you can see real-time performance statistics, and this will actually enable you and empower you to be able to tune your laptops and ultimately achieve great thermal performance with minimal FPS impact, oftentimes none whatsoever. So to do that, I have installed Battlefield 2042, which is very CPU demanding. We'll be able to showcase what kind of power limits would be required to run that game online. And then Doom Eternal, which does a good job of utilizing your hardware, but it may not need all that CPU grunt. And there's a lot of advantages in knowing how to do this, since each piece of software is different, and you can't really expect your hardware to perfectly utilize the right amount of wattage per that piece of software. Ultimately, that wouldn't be something you would want to do anyway, and having this granular control that we have on these systems is going to be your best bet. So let's start off with MSI Afterburner. This is a fresh system here. I just have these two titles, Control Center. The BIOS is at optimized defaults. There's nothing fancy here. This is just a base system with 4800 megahertz memory. I do have CPU-Z on here, so I could provide that evidence for you guys. But we're going to go ahead and download MSI Afterburner, and I'm going to show you exactly what settings that I do personally use and why. The system is set up in dedicated GPU mode. It's not using the advanced Optimus. For MSI Afterburner and the Riva Tuner overlay, setting your system in the BIOS to the dedicated GPU mode, oftentimes those sensors are a little bit more straightforward when they are read by third-party software. So that's why I'm going ahead and going that route. So if you choose to do this on your Mac and you didn't change it to dedicated GPU, what you're about to see and what you may see on your end might be a little bit different, and that is why. So ultimately, DGPU mode will be your best bet. So we'll go ahead and get this installed, and we'll just reboot after it is complete. And yeah, this is a lot of fun. I've been doing things like this to every laptop since, 2015, 16. When I really started getting into laptops. Whenever Pascal came out is when I went really big into laptops. I was experimenting with them, of course, before that. Not quite as impressive until 10 series came out, and that was a lot of fun. So, excellent. Let's close this out. Reboot this shortly. Okay, so this is MSI Afterburner. If you are not too familiar with it, what it used to look like is this. Oh, that's more like it. I'm old school. We'll go ahead and expand this just a little bit, around 150%. On desktops, you would see a core voltage slider that would be active. On laptops, that's a no-no. That's not allowed. There used to be some hacks to where you could kind of unlock that, but it typically wouldn't work, and that's not something you would want to have activated. We want to peel voltage away from laptops to improve their thermal efficiency and oftentimes even maximum performance. So unlocking core voltage would be a bad idea. So we have core clock and memory clock. These are things we can also change within the control center, but that's not why we're here. We are not here for this. We are here for the overlay as well as the voltage curve editor, which we will feature later on. That one's a little tricky, but it yields some impressive results. So for your Afterburner properties, you want to click on monitoring, and Perfect. GPU temperature, check. Yes, we want that. We'll do that. On-screen display, usage, very important. And feel free to click on all this stuff as your heart's content, but I'm just going to cover the basics, and this is the stuff that I always run when I'm gaming. Even when I'm gaming by myself, I still have all of these sensors on because I am a lunatic. Power. What kind of wattage are we pulling? This won't be super accurate on machines like ours that feature Eluktroboost, but it'll give you a ballpark. And let's go ahead now. There are 24 cores and 32 threads in the 13900HX, and you're going to see a lot of different CPU temperatures to monitor here. All you have to do is just do CPU temperature. You do not need to do any individual core. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend doing that. It's not going to give you a good baseline, just CPU temperature by itself. Same thing with usage. You can see usage of the individual cores. It could be good for learning, but ultimately each piece of software is going to utilize that differently, and depending what you have running in the background is also going to dictate any changes there. So in this case, just CPU usage by itself. Yes, I want to monitor that. Same concept with the clocks. We're going to monitor just CPU clock. CPU power, so we have 4 different things for the GPU, 4 different things for the CPU, and finally, everyone's favorite, including my own, frame rate. We're going to hit apply, hit OK. I'm going to minimize this. Rivatuner overlay will pop up down here. I'm actually going to expand the size of this a little bit, maybe a little bit larger than normal, just so you guys can see it. For it's personal preference, right? You can have this super tiny, but for the sake of this video and the sanity of everybody watching it, making this large on screen is going to be very ideal. Right now I'm going to go ahead and reboot just to make sure that everything I did sticks, and then we're going to fire up. Let's do Doom Eternal, because that's very simple. I can just sit in an environment and not worry about getting blasted. It's a little less stressful. The system will be running at the maximum amount of wattage. We're going to monitor temperatures, utilization, and things like that. I'll explain to you how that works and what you're looking at and what we can do to ultimately improve temperatures and maybe even give us some headroom to make a quieter laptop. All of this that I am doing today, I would prefer to do on air. We do have the liquid propulsion package right here. If for some reason we really need to feature that in today's video, we can. But it's really fun to do this on air, and it's very challenging. And just keep something in mind, everything that we're doing here on air, and then you apply the water cooling, it's just going to be ridiculously cool at that point. So we'll go back to the Afterburner and open this up. Interesting thing about Afterburner, it's really nice to have these statistics on, but if you set this up to run in the background at all times and you want to be a lot more portable with your laptops, then you set it to Hybrid or Optimus. Don't run this in the background. Afterburner is designed to ping your graphics card every few seconds, and it will heavily drain your battery. Like if you're getting, let's say, 6 hours of battery life, if you run Afterburner in the background, you're going to cut that down to probably 2. So it's just not something you need to do. It's there for when you game. Otherwise, you have no reason to really run it. So just a pro tip for you. Okay, so everything that we just did, downloading Afterburner, setting up Rivatuner overlay, that's already done. I reset the computer. All I have to do is open this up. I'm going to minimize it. We'll go back to it later. And let's fire up a game. So Doom Eternal, and let's see what we're working with here. While that's doing its thing, we'll go into the control center and show you the settings. Everything is maxed out. Now, just because PL1 and PL2 say 160 watts, there's no reason for it to pull that, and it's just not going to do so. And then the super performance switch or Eluktroboost will be on at this point. Enable memory overclocking. Toggling that on is just going to open up a couple features within the BIOS that really have no meaning anyway, since we have the Prima mod on here, which is going to just open up Pandora's box and override that. But we did not do anything in today's BIOS beyond what you would receive it as, so doing anything else beyond what we have here is essentially going to be pointless. All right. Oh, that's nice and big. Evan, how does that look on your screen? Is that pretty readable, you think, for everybody watching?
That looks good to me. I mean, it's a small screen up there, and I can read it perfectly fine.
So what are we missing here? Looks like CPU temperature. Did I miss one in all of my rambling? I'll bet somebody caught that and said something. No? Okay.
They're being quiet.
You guys are being quiet.
They're listening.
Very nice. Let's go back to...
We're just kind of like explaining this right now, and then after we kind of go over all this, we're gonna have you guys ask questions if you have any, and we'll try to answer them best we can. But for now, we're just kind of introducing all this stuff. I mean, I'm learning this too. I don't really do much of this, so I'm following along while he does this, but we'll answer questions and whatnot after the fact.
Hey, John. Hey. Yeah, this is... Did Mike leave? Okay. All right, so I am going to fan boost on. I'm maxing out the fans right now. All right, we'll get into a game here in a second, but... For those that are watching, we've got Rivatuner overlay running in the background. It's monitoring the temperature. GPU at the top, that's in green. CPU below that in blue. Vulkan, that is the API. That is what Doom runs on. Some games use DX11, DX12. This uses the Vulkan API, which application program interface or something like that is what it stands for. GPU at the top, 81 degrees Celsius, and I do anticipate this climbing. We are on air. We're giving this thing the beans. It's at 99% utilization. This is a key number. You want to keep this as close to 100% as possible when we start tuning our CPU, and I'll explain how that works. I'll let it fall on its face. It's going to be a lot of fun. The frequency, that should be pretty much self-explanatory. And the wattage, that too self-explanatory. When running Eluktroboost like we are, wattage isn't always what it seems, but 170 watt, 175 watt, give or take. We won't go into too much detail beyond that. CPU, 82 degrees Celsius, 17% utilization. Don't let the high utilization GPU being a good thing reflect what the CPU is. If you were to have 100% utilization of your CPU and you're gaming, that's a bad thing. That means it's using all 32 threads to its maximum, and your performance is going to be terrible. When you are video editing, then that's a good thing. Using all those CPU cores, or things that are, let's say, encouraged or should be using no CPU cores, encoding, various things like that. I know there's more than one way to skin a cat, and encoding is not just a CPU task, but generally speaking, having maximum utilization of the CPU for gaming, not ideal. If we were to shut down the, let's say, E-cores and hyper-threading, you would actually see CPU utilization higher than 17% here. That may not hurt performance. It may not improve it either. And on contrary to what some people might think, it's probably not going to improve thermals either, believe it or not. So CPU utilization, don't pay too much attention to it. Just know that when you're gaming, if you're getting up near 100%, you probably don't have enough cores or fast enough of a processor to do the job. Frequency there, a little generic. Because it's not being pushed to maximum load, that frequency doesn't mean a whole lot. It's kind of like being in a car, driving 100 miles an hour, and then putting it in neutral. You're going 100 miles an hour, but your car is not being pushed, and that's exactly what's happening here. And this is the general wattage that you have of the CPU of around 40 watts. We're going to tune this later, get some amazing thermal performance from the system. So let's go into the game, and this is everything maxed out, max fan, see what kind of thermal performance expectations we can have. And John, looks like you're pulling the mic up close to you. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask.
Just getting ready.
Just getting ready, okay. Oh my gosh. Look at that, 200 plus FPS. So if we just let this sit here and bake for a second, see how warm we can make this. Evan, is there any questions on the stream related to anything that we have shown so far?
Well, they want to know what other games you were planning on doing.
We're going to do Doom, and Battlefield 2042.
Okay, yeah, that's what I said. So next time we do something like this where we showcase games, we should run like a poll to see what games people would want to see.
If people want to see frame rate performance in a game, that's fine. But today is about how to thermally tune your laptop.
Right.
And so it's two different ball games. And the reason I cherry picked these two games is because Battlefield 2042 is going to be very demanding of the CPU, and the minimum amount of wattage required for that game to run well is a lot different than what Doom will be.
Okay.
So with Doom, I mean, we're running 55 watts into the CPU right now. I can assure you that is absurd amount. We do not need that much.
Will
I've had
let it bake, keep on cooking, Bob.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of times for my videos, when I would showcase this, I would let a system bake for hours. I remember setting this up in an environment like this at my house, and then I would go see a bunch of clients. I would run a 5K. I'd come back in 5 hours, and then I would begin my my run. So it doesn't take that long for something to get nice and warm. I would imagine if we were to walk away right now and come back to this, you wouldn't see temperatures too much higher than what you have now. But that was just one of the things I would try to do because I thought it was funny and I had the time.
Primo, the pizza's been eaten. We had pizza for lunch. But don't worry, we had pizza. That's the
Primo
biggest
and his
thing.
pizza. So you can already see the GPU, if you're really watching this like a hawk, it went from 81 to 80 degrees Celsius. So when you start to see it bounce up and then back down a little bit, we're really starting to hit kind of the limit and the saturation based on the ambient temperature. We could leave this here for quite a while and it probably wouldn't get too much higher than this. The fans are maxed, everything is running at full tilt. And yeah, that's pretty much about all the hotter she would get for this particular section, right? This game is a lot of fun. Anybody played Doom Eternal? It was really difficult for me to get past. Probably because I'm old. Evan, if you played this, you would probably do very well.
I never touched it.
But it's a lot of fun. I've got a lot of the unlocks, and it's a good time.
Honestly, we should actually one of these times do Fortnite. Because now that I played that the other day and realized how demanding it is now, I think that would actually kind of be a good one.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I were just talking about that 3-4 hours ago.
Right.
No.
The game that has 9 lives.
The game that has 9 lives, indeed.
It physically cannot die. Exactly. It's crazy what they do with it.
All right, so let's do a little bit of an experiment here. Let's go into Control Center, and let's just strictly focus on PL1, PL2. PL4, real quick, is just the absolute maximum that this chip could possibly take. I think it's absurd. Nobody will ever see 250 watts go through the Intel chip. This is their spec, not ours. I think it's funny. Leaving this at its maximum, though, I do recommend. If you start to drop this down too far, I have seen some performance issues. I honestly, this is one of these things where I really couldn't tell you why. It's hardly been worth my time investigating. I do know running it at its maximum does not hurt anything, and it has been the recommendation. So PL1 is the long-term power limit. And the way laptops used to be set was, let's say a PL1 would be 45 watts and a PL2 might be 75 watts. After about 28 seconds, the PL2, that turbo boost limit would be exhausted, and then the system would automatically throttle itself back down to PL1. And the Eluktronics Control Center for several generations now have been able to modify this to make those durations last indefinitely, as long as the thermal headroom, of course, is there. So what I want to do is I want to take this down to something absolutely absurd. It should run very poorly at PL1 and PL2 at 10 watts, but I'm trying to prove a point here.
Ninja asks, is your modded BIOS only for the MECH-17 G2, or can you use it on an XMG Neos too?
This is strictly for our products. Okay, now look what happened here. I dropped the wattage of the CPU, and look at the performance. It's terrible. I took it too far. right? We have GPU saturation at like 30-something%. The CPU doesn't even want to run this low, and it's chugging along at about 17 watts. We need to bring this up. We want to bring this up to the point to where your GPU is at that 99%, right? And then once it's there and you find that sweet spot, then you want to start playing the game while you're monitoring that stuff. So let's take this back up to, let's try 25 watts. And in this case, I'm going to match PL1 and PL2. If I max this out to 160, after the turbo timer kind of runs out, then it's going to sit back to 25 watts. You can do this, but for gaming and thermal tuning, there's really no point in doing so. So let's take this right back. Ooh, okay, we're on to something, right? 25 watts did work in this instance. Now we've essentially cut the wattage down of the CPU almost in half. You saw earlier it was around 54 watts. You also saw 40 watts. Call it a day at 45 watts. We just took 20 watts off the CPU. We'll let it sit here and run for a little bit. Again, try not to pay too much focus in the GPU wattage. That Eluktroboost does some weird things. There's some wattage going to the system, and then what it is reporting may not always line up. Those that are savvy enough may have noticed that. But nonetheless, we're getting some really good performance here. I did see a little bit of a drop there at 91% for a brief second. Could be an anomaly. This is not updating every millisecond. There are some breaks here. But not bad. We're still getting over 200 FPS. The GPU saturation is at 99%. And the temperatures, I mean, what did we drop here? 10 degrees? Effortless.
Oh, I wasn't really looking.
That's all right, Evan. You're...
I have a lot of things to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's not bad. Nice little drop. I can tell right now, 25 watts, Battlefield is not having it, but for this title, it's great. Ryzen 6000 series, you can usually set that to around 15 to 20 watts, and it does a really good job. Ryzen's very efficient, especially at the lower end of the wattage spectrum. As a matter of fact, single core performance in like Cinebench for Ryzen at around 15 or 20 watts is just as good as it is at full wattage. But yeah, this is playing very smooth. My fans are at maximum, which, where's the decibel meter?
Yeah, you can, like, I can hear them. But it's not like, I wouldn't say it's crazy loud.
No, what is that reading at?
40.
Upper 40s?
Yeah, upper 40s is what it is.
Upper 40s on the decibels, max fans, but now we have an enormous amount of thermal headroom here. I just turned fan boost off.
Oh yeah, it got quieter.
System is quieting down. Of course, the GPU and CPU temperatures will raise as a result, but now we have that thermal headroom here, okay? And you saw how easy it was to do the tuning. This system, these systems from Eluktronics are very nice because you can real-time do that wattage tuning. Without a system like this, you may be stuck with doing throttle stop or XTU and modifying some of the PL1 and PL2 limits there. It is possible to do. There's also another trick we can do to improve thermal performance even further, which is through the voltage curve editor through MSI. Over the years, I've learned a much simpler way to do this, which I will showcase here. But, I mean, this is remarkably quiet, Evan, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I believe so. Also, can you explain what model and the specs that we're using right now?
Yep, this is the MECH-17 GP2, i9-13900HX, and the RTX 4080.
I'm actually going to put that as text under the screen.
Sure.
Hold on.
Yeah, this is really nice. Super performance switch, dynamic boost. Oh, it's getting really quiet now. RTX 4080. This is 32 gigs, so two 16 gigabyte DIMMs. Samsung 4800 megahertz. Probably don't have to label the brand name, but the speed is as stock could be. There we go. Utilization's dropping a little bit. So we could probably go a little higher than 25 watts on the CPU. And saturate the GPU just a little bit better than this.
All right, I put text on to have the hardware on so people know.
Nice. Thank you, Evan. But this was very little effort on my end. Granted, yes, I've been doing this for a long time, so I kind of had a good baseline as to where to start. But ultimately, MSI Afterburner, Riva Tuner, check mark all the things that you want to see on screen, and then mess with the wattages, because there's no reason, for the most part, to have the CPU running at maximum wattage as long as that GPU is saturated. I say that for the most part because there will be very few cherry pick scenarios where having a little bit more wattage headroom will help the 1% lows out. For the tryhards out there playing, CSGO, I feel you. I get it. That might be something you would want to crank the wattage up on.
CSGO?
Yeah.
It's just CSGO.
Thanks, Evan.
He's old Evan.
Yeah. How many times a day can you make me feel like an old man?
Sorry. That's
It's
what
all
I'm
right.
here for.
But yeah, it's just that simple. This is very quiet. Yeah, low 40s on the decibels. So anybody have any questions on what they've seen so far? Keep in mind, this is still all on air. And there's one more trick that we can do. If we were just to leave the CPU wattage where it's at, we can actually pull some of the wattage off of the GPU by locking in a certain voltage and frequency. A lot of times the voltage of these GPUs may run at like maybe 0.9, somewhere in there. And you can get it to run around 0.750, give it a little bit of a frequency bump. You're going to see your wattage drop dramatically, but we can still get some good frames. So right now we're maybe a little bit over 200 FPS if I don't move anything else on the screen. The fans are running on their own. It's not terribly loud at all. And temperatures are in the upper 70s. Again, we can max the fans out here and get everything to run back down to around 70 degrees Celsius. But as of right now, we're just letting this thing run on its own.
So Cody asks, what temps are you looking to stay under? How hot is too hot?
Well, the way these systems are designed, like the T-junction, the maximum thermal throttle set point set by Intel is set for a reason, and we have our systems throttled before that anyway. So let's say it's around 100 or 105 degrees Celsius. Ours are set to throttle at around 95. In fact, when you first open up Control Center, you may find that it's actually set to run at 92. But if you want to enable TCC offset, you can actually lower that. So we're not only, like the T-junction is set there for a reason, the maximum thermal throttle set point of the CPU, and our systems are even set below that, just because I know a lot of people like myself are really nutty when it comes to thermal. So there's no unsafe limit, is basically what I'm trying to tell you. There's personal preferences. If I can get my system to run cool and quiet, I just prefer that. My hands are on the keyboard. I don't want them roasting, and I'm gaming at my house. I would prefer it to be quiet. Mm-hmm. Yes, I've got the LPP, and that's cheating. I realize that, but there's still some level of tunability that you can have here, which makes the Control Center great. So sorry for kind of dodging the question a little bit, because it's personal preference. You're going to look at the comment section anywhere. If there was a big channel that were to ask that question, you're going to see people that are going to say, oh, I don't ever let it go over 80. And you're going to hear other people say, oh, I let it go to thermal throttle. It's set up that way for a reason, and they're both correct. So It's all personal preference at that point. If you're willing to wear headphones and let the thing just rip, have at it. They're designed for that as well. Let's go to that voltage curve editor. This is awesome. So let me get this in the middle of the screen here. Evan, do you think everybody can see this, or should I make it a little bit bigger?
You might want to make it a little bit. Yeah,
How's that?
Be better. Yeah.
Okay. So the voltage curve editor can be a little tricky. We're going to make this as easy as possible. So over these graphs here, just put your mouse over that and hit Control F. Look at this hot mess. This is the factory curve. You have voltage at the bottom. It'll never hit 1.250. And here's the frequency associated with that voltage. This is generically set up by NVIDIA. Every 4080 mobile chip will read exactly like this. When you were to overclock in the setting right here and hit apply, it sort of just shifts everything up. We don't want to do that. I am going to say, let's go with, one of my favorites is 750 millivolts. For some reason, I gravitate towards this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. I'm going to hold the button down, and I'm going to slide the frequency up just a little bit. I'll probably lock it up in a little bit here just to show you what that looks like. But let's go 1865. For no other reason than that's just where I'm going to stop it. My hands are off the mouse. I'm going to hit Control L. And you can see a yellow line top to bottom. What I've done now is I'm going to lock in that voltage, and I'm going to lock in that frequency. I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to hit apply, and you'll see the core clock megahertz now says curve. Now, if this curve is stable for you and you like it, you can actually save it to one of your profiles, and you can always have it, right? But what we'll get now is a GPU that is running, look at that, 91 watts. Now, I'm aware that we're no longer at 212 FPS, right? We're at 190. For some people, they're going to be ecstatic because the thermal performance you're going to have here is going to be incredible. And you guys hear that laptop?
No.
It's like idling now.
I don't hear it actually at all.
It's amazing. So when you take wattage from one part and you drop it, it's going to impact the other because the heat sink is shared. If we were to max the fans out right now, we're going to get temperatures of the CPU and GPU probably in the 60s. That's amazing for a laptop. And don't get too stressed out by the voltage curve editor. What I showed you today, you can do to your system. It might lock it up. It might not. It's not going to hurt anything. Just reboot. You're going to be just fine. You don't have to do this exactly like I did. 93 watts is not a lot. We have plenty of headroom here. And some of you may be thinking, well, wait a minute. Does that mean I can have a lower voltage but even a higher clock speed than what NVIDIA has set? Ding, ding. Absolutely, you can. I don't want to go down that road with you guys too much today because that will take a great deal of time and tuning. That is something that I could work on by myself and come back and show you, but it's going to be very specific to this laptop. I could take this same spec on 10 different systems, and that voltage curve is going to be a little bit different due to the silicon lottery. What I'm doing here is I'm picking things that, generally speaking, do work for this particular spec, and many of you would be able to mirror everything that I'm showing you here today, which is certainly far more ideal. But if you can wrap your head around everything that I just showed you, there's a lot of wiggle room that can be had, and now we have a system that's running insanely cool. It's not having water pipe through it, and it's very quiet. And that took no effort at all. So let's try to do the same thing in Battlefield. That's a little bit more of a train wreck because that's very CPU dependent, and I'm going to have to get into a game in order to really showcase that, which means I'm probably going to get shot a lot. So any questions about this or anything that I've showed you that would be kind of relevant to this title before I exit out and turn on Battlefield 2042? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Man, look at these temps. This is so nice.
I mean, even if it did drop like 30 FPS, it's still, I mean,
They want it to come back up?
it's dead silent, like completely.
Yeah, that was my first attempt at picking something very, very easy to do. Let's go 0.8. Actually, maybe I kind of want to lock it up.
I mean,
but I
if
also
your-
don't want to
if
waste
your
everyone's
GPU
time.
usage is 100%.
Yeah, that means, yep.
Is
Let's
that
do this. Sure.
Yeah, that's
GPU
fine.
usage you want at 100% or close to it. For tuning, there's a lot of things you can do, man. You could cap your frame rate to 60 and then your utilization drops. There's so much that's what makes PC gaming so great, is what your perception of awesomeness is. If it's just 60 FPS, you can do it that way too. There's just a lot of different ways you can do this. So let's go ahead and hit apply. Let's see if it locks up. So we're running at a higher voltage now. You'll see the wattage then went from like 91-ish to around 105. So we're up 15, 18 watts. It did bring the frame rate up a little bit closer to that 200 point, 2100 megahertz. You kind of see what's going on here. Like you can mess with this. If you were to keep that voltage low and crank up the frequency, it will lock up on you, and you'll just a lot of times have to power it down and turn it back on. Not the end of the world. MSI Afterburner's not going to reload, and when you turn it back on, your GPU's not going to be at maximum anyway, so it's not going to keep locking up on you. You're not going to get stuck in a situation that you're unable to get out of, is what I'm saying. So very good, clean, user-friendly piece of software. Once you wrap your head around all these little details that I'm showing you today, you can have a lot of fun with it. And still quiet as can be.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh,
great. Yeah. Since I've been working here, getting to test this on so many different kinds of laptops, I've been able to borrow friends' laptops that are not ours here. And it's really easy to take for granted just how nice and tuner friendly this software is. And then once I get my hands onto something else, it really makes me appreciate what we've got here. Now, don't get me wrong. What I'm showing you here today can, for the most part, be done to a various degree on other laptops. You just may have to hunt around a lot more and do some interesting things to be able to control those power limits. But I would say 7 out of 10 times you will be able to do so on most of your gaming laptops that are out today.
We have a question.
Sure.
Is there any way to make the GPU use less but maintain a lower voltage?
What do you mean?
They asked, is there any way to make the GPU use less, but
Use
also,
less what?
I guess, utilize less?
There's a couple ways we can decrease the utilization and still have good performance, but ask the question in a different way. Let me try to understand what you're saying.
They just said percentage. So maybe GPU percentage.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, see, how do I want to say this? If you want to reduce GPU utilization, and therefore you go with that method to reduce temperatures, then the easiest way to do that is to cap your frame rate. So let's say Apex Legends, which is like notoriously stuck at like 144 FPS, and this system will clearly exceed that. That would be a game where you would see very low GPU utilization and you would get great temperature. And that is something you can do. You can use software to cap your frame rate at 60. Those that are controller players should be fine a lot of times at 60 hertz as well, just because the turning speed is a lot slower. So that is an option. If you find that to be efficient for you, by all means use it. Nothing wrong with doing so. But personally, for me, I like to go this particular route so I can make sure that the CPU is pushing the GPU just right. What else we got?
No questions, just Ninja said if the gaming experience is smooth and your laptop is silent on idle, what else do you want? True.
Yeah, I honestly think that really is the key.
Oh, wait. Leggy says, oh, before you leave Doom, can you match Eluktronics Control Center with MSI stats?
Can I match it?
That's what it says. Before you leave Doom, can you match Eluktronics Control Center with MSI stats?
Give me an example as to what that would look like. Not you, Evan, but no, Evan, you.
Yeah, I know. Bob's voice is a lot louder because he's the main talker, so I have him above. No, you're good.
Do you want to see the control center? This is so nice. So weird getting this kind of frame rate at 1600p on a system that's this quiet.
Yep.
And not using the liquid propulsion package.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Now, I mean, to be fair, honestly, I think the MECH-17, even at maximum fans, is a very nice sounding, fan RPM. So this is not a loud laptop to begin with, but we've heard a few doozies here over the last month or so that were really loud. Evan, is the audio of the game playing at all through?
No.
Okay. No, that's good, because when we get in the battlefield, I just, some people can be very...
Yeah, I have that off.
Yeah.
If we ever do want that, I can do that, but...
No, that's okay. For the next game, not everybody wears their church tongue, so I want to make sure. Yeah. But yeah, this is nice. This is where it's at, guys. If you... Setting the voltage curve editor aside, although don't sleep on that, that is a very useful tool, especially for systems that do not have the ability to change wattage of their CPU or have the ability to undervolt, which doesn't impact thermal performance too much on systems that are running maximum wattage. It just improves performance versus decreasing thermals. More on that in the comment section or in another video if you need to understand how that works. But if you can peel off some of that wattage from your graphics card and still maintain good performance, I mean, we're looking at 175 watts to the GPU. If we can take 75 watts off that, think about just how much cooler the CPU is going to be and the GPU that it's sitting right next to. And that's something you don't want to miss out on. Just because your GPU is not thermal throttling does not mean it's not going to impact the temperature of the CPU, because they share the same cooling solution. Sure. All right. Evan's showing me the live feed here. Who are we talking to?
Yeah.
Leggy?
Yeah. So he started with that one.
Can I match Eluktronics Control Center with MSI stats? So the Eluktronics Control Center controls the wattage, and it then would impact the MSI unless you're talking about like the core and clock. If I were to adjust, maybe that's what you're talking about. If I were to adjust like the core and memory clock offset through MSI Afterburner or the Control Center, yeah, those two work together. Ace.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't have a PC, so I can't be right back. Electronics have temperature stats. Oh, temperature stats within the Control Center? No, not this Control Center does not. I personally don't think it's too necessary. I like that it's less bloaty. That is something I have seen in the past, though, on other systems with Control Centers. So let's, what do you think? Should we move on to Doom?
You mean Battlefield?
Or Battlefield? Sorry, I was just looking at Doom when I said that.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'm going to reset this, and I'm going to make this thing run really hot now. At least I'm going to try to. All right, max the fans. This may not be a fan favorite game because DICE can't seem to make a good Battlefield game, but this title has come a long way, and it does a really good job of punishing the hardware. So if you have systems with more memory, faster CPU, a powerful GPU, all of those things impact your performance in a game like this versus something like Doom is very GPU dependent. You could put faster memory in it. It's not really going to help too much. CPU helps up to a certain point, but our CPU is way overpowered for that game anyway. Versus a title like this, you really want to have some grunt across the board in order to really take advantage of what this game can do. It punishes hardware.
Wait, there is a temperature monitor and control center, they say.
Like an actual...
Because Leggy said, oh, okay, because in the past I would use Eluktronics control center to check my temperature, and it would show 94 from the moment I clicked Fortnite. And then Christopher said, there is a temp monitor and control center.
Where's it at?
We don't even know.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't have it on the newer version?
I don't know.
Click home.
Yep.
I guess it... I don't even know.
I don't think so. Older versions? Possibly.
They said device information, look there.
You got frequency. Oh, system monitor. Maybe this is it. There it is. I don't think I've ever clicked on this.
Yeah, we don't really look at that.
No, this is not very accurate at all. This thing updates very slowly. Look at it. Has any number changed on this screen? Oh, I think I just saw one flicker.
Yeah, I've never used that before.
I would not trust that.
Yeah, it's not accurate.
No.
Or I mean, it's accurate. It's just not like synced up. Like it's gonna be a little delayed.
It's very slow at updating. It's so slow that I didn't even realize it was in there. All right, this game's gonna bring the heat. I'm gonna go to a giant map. 128 players. It's gonna stress out the CPU quite a bit. So I don't know what kind of utilization we were getting before with the CPU maxed out in Doom. Maybe it was like in the teens. This should be much higher than that. It better not be anywhere close to 100%. I don't think this game is going to utilize 32 threads.
Yeah, hardware monitor is good.
Hardware monitor is excellent, yeah. Oh, and exposure. This is a big map too. Perfect.
Have you
See,
ever,
even right here in the
have you
loading
ever
menu,
used-
it said like 93% utilization. That's high.
Bob, did you ever use the Enzod XT cam? It's like a monitoring software. I kind of use it. No.
You have to show that to me.
Okay.
Let's go here. So we can stay out of...
Damn, that's fine. Smooth. Looks
Not
good.
bad. This is all high settings, 1600p.
Yeah, this is Battlefield 2042.
Should be all high settings, 90-degree field of view, motion blur off.
As it should be.
As it should be, that's right. I don't need motion blur. My eyes do that on their own.
Yep, there you go.
I'm going to see if I can get over to this ledge over here to get a lot more things within my field of view. John, it looks like FedEx just pulled in.
Wow, they're late.
Very.
really late. I know this game should use 8 cores, 12 threads, so I heard at 100%. Is that correct?
What's that?
Leggy says, I know this game should use 8 cores and 12 threads, so I heard at 100%.
8 core, 16 thread, near 100% would be very likely. Absolutely. GPU utilization is very good. Games like this that try to get very high GPU utilization can be very difficult. I am really
This map looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's huge.
Oh my god.
It's personally, Evan, it's not fun to play on, but it's good to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all of this is. Oh, see if I can wingsuit over here. Can I heal in the air? Probably not. Nope. This isn't bad. I mean, for being on air, maxed out,
It's
max
really not
wattage.
that loud either.
Temperatures are pretty good. I mean, pretty good for a laptop.
Oh yeah. I don't think I could ever complain if games played like this.
No. 100 plus FPS.
Oh, I know. I was playing Fortnite because I haven't played it for a little bit, right? So I played it with my friend last night, actually. And that's something that I think we need to use as a little benchmark, because that game is extremely demanding now. Like,
Yeah.
it's night and day
Yep.
compared to what it used to be.
What is your desktop GPU, Evan? 3070 Ti?
Just a 3070.
Oh, okay.
Ace, this is on air. Yeah, we have not used the LPP at all.
Nope. And yeah, Ace, I mean, that's kind of the point, is just the information I'm sharing today, while it's being applied to an electronics laptop, a lot of this stuff can be done on other laptops as well. I'm going to try to get back up to the top. If I can't, I'm going to spawn back at the base and then kind of do that same run again after I make some adjustments.
Just know that in Fortnite, I only play no build mode. So. And also, my goal is to beat 7 wins in a row, because that's what my friend and I did not that long ago. So if we can do that, that'd be cool.
Don't expect much for gameplay here, guys. I'm more focused on temperatures. I have no audio.
Yeah. Chris asks, how does it look without Eluktroboost?
Let's find out. I think you're going to see games like Cyberpunk probably use Eluktroboost a little bit better. It might do okay here. But Eluktroboost may give you 3% bump, may give you 8 or 9. Really just kind of depends on the title.
Bet. Let's do it.
I want to get to this ledge again if I can. What's the temperatures been doing? Maybe 90 on the CPU, upper 80s, and then
90,
low to mid.
80s for GPU.
There's a little bit of headroom here for not running max fans, but at that point I would not expect more than maybe 2 or 3 decibels lower if I turn that off, and then the temps would pretty much thermal throttle at that point. That would be my prediction. But I want to see if I can do something better than that. All right. Let me let this settle. So what, 143 FPS roughly? I'm going to try to exit out.
Bob, I think, said we're on high settings.
Yep, high settings, 90-degree field of view, 1600p resolution. So yeah, in this title here, let that settle in. It's like Eluktroboost. It did not really seem to manage too much of a performance increase, if anything at all. And this dates back for a long time. Not just Eluktroboost bass, but like just wattage in general. There's like these sweet spots where these GPUs happen to run. Yeah, and even at 150 watts. I can't say Battlefield's been one of those games where getting the wattage obnoxiously high for the GPU seemed to help me much. And I've played these titles a lot. Temperatures, kind of about the same. Let's see if we can improve that. Now, from my testing, I already know the wattage limits that this title tends to favor. If I were to lower the CPU, PL1, PL2 is around 35 watts. I do recommend this to our customers all the time that are wanting to improve thermal performance but not impact frame rate performance. And this is usually the sweet spot right here for this. I was very happy to get into this map because this thing is obnoxiously challenging, so I do expect it to be a little bit lean at 35 watts. Yeah. And I'd say it is. Look at GPU utilization. This is a really good spot to be in. This is the biggest map in the game, and this has got a lot of draw distance. So even at 35 watts, this is a very cherry-picked situation, but I would say this is not quite enough in order to get maximum utilization. What am I looking at? I don't know, Derek, if we are actually suffering that issue. There's been a lot of issues regarding 40 series, and a lot of those bullets we have managed to dodge. As our BIOS and Intel's microcode and everything that's packed into that is on a build that was before a lot of the current known about problems have been out, and we worked very hard early on before we were shipping these to iron out a lot of stuff with Prima. And we're not, unfortunately for XMG, but fortunately for us, we're not really suffering a lot of those issues that they are having, as well as a lot of the other manufacturers, which has been really, really nice. It hasn't been for a lack of sleep, though. The team that's been dedicated to that has been heavily dedicated to that, mostly being myself, Prima, and the CEO, Will.
Shout out, Bob.
So,
standing in his little corner in the office just all day.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was a few weeks, Evan, where I was a head case, and you were bringing in coffees in the morning, and I said, I got to stop, because I was loaded up on caffeine for weeks, hardly sleeping, and I was pulling like 70-plus hour weeks, just testing stuff at night, trying to get down to the bottom of everything before we finalized it. And right now, our systems are in a very good place to where those issues are not happening.
I wouldn't say, so Leggy said, any major issues with the MECH-GP2 so far, or is everything so far, to your knowledge, good? I would say it's, as far as I know, I mean, Bob knows more in-depth stuff, but I think it's good, right?
Oh, yeah.
At this point?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's been very solid, very reliable.
Oh, Derek said it's occurring on my MECH-17 GP2, which is why I asked.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't already, email support about it, and they'll forward everything to me. But I would be very curious to see just a few things on it. Ask some questions to you on email, and we'll go from there. Make sure you have like the latest NVIDIA driver. What is it, 531, I think it is.
Something like that, yeah.
35 watts right here. In most circumstances for this game is fine, but not right here. This is awesome. I got so lucky to find this. So I'm going to bump it up just a little bit.
Ace asks, are the 6400 kits overclocked from a 4800 kit or something that is rated higher?
I would love to just be like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. I know the answer to that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's something we don't really know.
Yeah, that is still a work in progress on many levels in just getting the chips. That's been a fun one.
Christopher says, I thought it was narrowed down to the NVIDIA driver. The newest one is supposedly the fix.
That's been one of the discussions related to some of this, and yes, for many users that has been a fix for some issues. It's weird because there's like 2 or 3 different issues that are being reported, and they're all getting that. And when I mean issues, you got to understand, like I am on Reddit forums for laptops such as the G14. I am all over the place. I try to see everything. I watch Jared. I'm just a tech nerd, so I don't just have like the blinders on for our laptops. Granted, I do spend most of the time on this, but I like to see what everybody else is doing too, from a service standpoint, from a performance standpoint, from a troubleshooting standpoint. I just gravitate towards that. It's very fascinating to me. So there's like 2 or 3 issues out there that there seems to be some overlap with the solutions because some of the problems are very similar, but the actual issue that's causing them is different. So I know that's like super vague, but it's been interesting to kind of watch that, whether it's a BIOS or an NVIDIA driver. Those are the two big ones right now that a lot of companies are having. And a lot of like the microcode is shared between, the stuff that Intel packs in, with their chips for the BIOS. There's a lot of similarities from one manufacturer's BIOS to another, whether it's Asus, Lenovo. There's some things that you just wouldn't see on the outside. And I typically wouldn't see either. I just know about. Bring that up to about 40 watts was a little bit better. And I'm not going to complain at around 80 degrees Celsius on air. Of course, if we turn the water on, it would probably drop, 5, 10 degrees, maybe more. But that's no fun. That's cheating. Let's do the voltage curve. Since we're both locked in around 80 degrees there. So for those that are just joining the stream recently and you haven't seen me bring up this MSI Afterburner, this is what I'm using for the overlay. And I can really do something pretty slick here by hovering over this and hitting Control F. There is a hot mess of dots here. The bottom row is the voltage that the GPU can potentially run at, and on the left from bottom to top here is the frequency increasing. And this is a generic curve that the 4080 Mobile will have. All of you that have this particular GPU, not associated with Eluktronics, just in general, would ultimately have this same curve. Laptops that would come with like a factory overclock, let's say, you have like an Asus laptop that's running like a turbo profile, may put an extra 100 megahertz of a core frequency. So you may see this line bump up a little bit, but that's what would make it different, not anything else. So a lot of these GPUs will run a certain voltage, and oftentimes it's around 0.9, and I like to try to lock in something a little bit lower while also bumping the frequency that would typically be associated with that voltage. Whew. Mouthful. All right, so for example, if these would normally run at 0.9, let's go ahead over to 800 millivolt or 0.8. I'm going to click the mouse button. I'm going to hold this down, and it's got 1890 on the left side of the screen for frequency. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. So I'm essentially overclocking at this voltage, and then I'm going to lock this frequency in voltage in. I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's just try 2000 megahertz. Hands off the mouse. I'm going to hit Control L. There's going to be, boom, vertical yellow line on the screen. That means it's going to lock it in there as long as I don't lock up the machine. I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to hit apply. The core clock megahertz now says curve because I have adjusted the curve. We're going to minimize that again. We're going to go into the game and hope it doesn't lock up. We're good. Okay. So we went from, what kind of wattage did we have before? 140, 150 watts roughly. Now we're down to around 100. Because we're pulling from the Elgato to record and we have the overlay on, the wattages here may be a little bit different than what you were, if you were to apply some of this stuff on your own. So don't freak out. This is just the nature of different pieces of hardware plugged into a laptop, running software. It's not an exact science, but I can assure you that if you do exactly what I've done and you're not seeing what I'm seeing, chances are that is why. Nonetheless, we're getting lower temperatures now, and by reducing the wattage, I got shot there, I saw the shadow. By reducing the wattage of the GPU, if we can finesse this enough to where we can kind of apply an overclock, but simultaneously reduce the voltage, or essentially reducing the wattage of the graphics card, you're going to reduce the heat. Take the heat off the GPU, takes the heat off the CPU, and now 60, mid to upper 60s on the 4080 and lower 70s on a 13900HX. That's awesome. And that is still on air. And we're playing a pretty demanding game. Not just demanding on the graphics card, but demanding on the CPU and the memory. Not a bad way
Can I
to
take
thermally
over?
tune your laptop. What's that, Evan?
I have things to answer. Okay,
Sure.
so I'm going to show you guys the Prometheus 16 GP2 on the camera, but we do not have any updates on that. As far as we know, the last we were told is we're shooting for May, but that's, as far as Bob and I know, that's all we know. But let me pull up the camera to show you guys.
If you guys haven't seen this, oh, it's beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. I don't think video is going to do it justice. I guess I could take some of the pictures that are on my phone and post them on the community tab. I'll have to ask permission from the boss man before we do that, but it is nice. The RGB is very slick. Just a very... Yeah. Evan, you've been around laptops a lot since you've been working here. Mm-hmm. I have not seen you that excited until you laid eyes on that. And when you saw it, it was like love at first sight from across the room. You were like a full step into the door. It's nice. Yeah. And it was universal too. Everybody that saw it was like, wow. Even Boss Man, and that's saying something because he is very hard to please. And that's a good thing, by the way, because he keeps pushing for the best of the best. So he's not somebody that's going to settle. And
also, yes, this does not look like the old Prometheus, and it's better quality. The old Prometheus, I'm not going to say it was bad. I personally didn't like it. But the build quality and all that on this is, in my opinion, just much better.
Yeah, it's solid. It is absolutely solid.
We also have... So, ASR James, yes, the Max series lineups are discontinued.
Yep.
We're sad about that, just like a lot of other people, but we can't really do anything about that. So.
I mean, all good things got to come to an end. You know, the MECH-17 and 17 have been around since 9th generation. 9, 10, 11, 12. 4 generations for a laptop that only had changes to the internals, not just the obvious, but, you know, a muck switch was added, displays were improved, but the chassis itself was generally the same. It was getting a little long in the tooth. It was time for it to go. I get it, you know, so.
It's like, no, all good things don't have to come to an end. Look, if we could continue that lineup, we would.
You love the MAX-17.
The MAX-15 was my favorite. I mean, before the Prometheus 16 G2 or GP2, but the MAX-15 was just, it performed great. It was sleek. It was slim. It was something that you could bring to school, per se. Not that our other ones you can't, but those were ones that you could go to a business meeting and it would be like, okay, wow, that's a nice laptop, but it wouldn't be like, oh, you have a gaming laptop with you. That's interesting. So it was one that you could really like be inconspicuous with, but in reality, it's like a top-notch gaming laptop. That's what I really liked about it. And then the keyboard on it was, it might be my favorite, just feel-wise, but yeah, there's really nothing we could do about it, sadly.
And that is kind of interesting coming from you, because you type on the keyboards on all of them more than probably most people. You know, like me, I'm typically on my mag. I know that thing very well, but you're constantly building. You test everything. I hear you clacking all the time over there. So for you to have that kind of opinion, it does kind of mean something, you know? Granted, it's a personal one, but it's coming from somebody that has a lot of experience typing on all of our keyboards.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people on the MECH-17 GP2 with the mechanical keyboard. A lot of people didn't really like that. A lot of people do like it. It's very 50-50, which is why for the Prometheus 16 GP2, we're going with a membrane, because a lot of people were asking for that. So... And I'm pretty sure we're not doing an option to be able to make it mechanical, right?
No.
Yeah. So no, that one will be just membrane, just like the former Prometheus 17. Yeah, the bezel is very small, which I also really like. Because my old laptop had like the thickest bezel you could ever possibly see, and it was not nice.
That's your Dell 7577?
Yep. My good old 1050 Ti laptop. That's what got me into gaming PCs and laptops. No, but like the Prometheus 16 GP2, the white bad boy over there, that is a laptop that I know Bob wanted too, but they weren't sure how it was going to look. And I was just pushing it. I was like, look, it may not look great online on like design pictures like CAD and whatnot, but if we get one and we bring it in to see what it looks like, I promise it will look so nice. And that's exactly what happened.
That is exactly what happened. Yeah.
Does it have a 17-inch for Prometheus? No. So the newest Prometheus is only going to be 16-inch.
Yep, that'll be a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, 1600p display. Should be a little bit nicer of a display though, significantly brighter actually.
Oh, I'm not really worried about too much echo for my mic at least.
Evan, can you switch this back to this screen? I want to show everybody something. So now we're back in Battlefield 2042, but we're playing on a smaller map with 32 people, a lot less draw distance, and I was able to reduce the wattage to 35 watts. Uh-oh, I'm about to get wrecked here, yeah. Versus, reduced it to 30 watts versus the 40 that we had before, so that's a nice little reduction, and I can still get excellent GPU utilization here. I have noticed, though, that it's very close at this point. When I first got into the map, there was just a weird bit of stuttering. It has stopped, but I can tell that we are very close. But regardless, we're on air, and we're mid-60s on the GPU and around 70 on the CPU. And the whole time the camera was, in the room here, I was playing. So it's not like I kind of just turned this on. Yeah, it's not bad. Thermal tuning for the win.
You guys
It's
made
the way to do it.
mechanical keyboard sound like it was super loud, but it really isn't that bad. It feels amazing. Well, I'm glad. I guess it's just personal preference. Like for
Oh,
me,
yeah.
the keyboard that I have in my house is a yellow switch keyboard. And it's very nice. It's not very loud, but it's still clicky. And then we have some here that we use that are a bit louder, which is nice, but I guess in my opinion, for personal preference, I like it a little bit quieter. But it is nice to hear that people do really like it, because it is nice. It's just a personal thing that, like, some people just don't really like it loud. Some people like it louder. Some people don't really matter, or it doesn't matter to people. But yeah, I find that would be more personal. But I'm happy people do like it, because it is a nice keyboard.
Has a really good feel to it.
It does, yeah.
Like, I don't mistype, and it's just got a good reliable feel.
I prefer that one over the old MECH-17 keyboard.
That was very crowded.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
All right, and now for my last and final trick, I am going to lock up the machine by pushing the voltage curve too far.
For right now, there's no job opening. Sorry. Maybe sometime down the line.
What's that?
They just said any job opening. I was
Not-
like, for
not
now,
at the moment.
no. But down the line, probably.
All right, so let's say you get a little aggressive. You're like, gosh, I really want to run the lowest voltage possible, and I really want a high clock, so I'm going to go with 0.7. I'm going to take this up to 2,000 megahertz, right? You might think that might work. It would be really slick if it does, but it shouldn't. I'm going to hit apply. It's already locked up. So yeah, that is what you can expect. It's not a big deal. It might revert itself. Chances are I'm going to have to power it down, turn it back on, and everything will be fine. As a matter of fact, can I even Alt-Delete? No Control Alt-Delete, nothing. Can't exit out of here. All right, so I'm going to power it down, turn it back on so I can show you that it's not broken. But that's an expectation you should have if you are going to mess with the voltage curve.
And that's why I don't do that.
No, it's fine. I mean, I gave every example I gave tonight, though, did work. And I feel
no,
pretty
for
confident that, 95 out of 100 laptops, as long as you are pay a little bit of attention to what you're doing, you don't push it too far.
I only
you'll
say
be
that
fine.
from my end is because I've never done it.
Yeah.
I don't have experience with it. I have no clue what I'm doing, which is why I was paying attention here a
Sure.
lot. But it's still something that I'm just too worried that I'm going to possibly push it too far and then brick my system. And
You can't brick it. Can't brick it, man.
Really?
Yeah.
That's intriguing then. If you guys have any more questions, I know we're going for a little bit more, but I don't think we're going to go for like crazy long.
Well, you and I get so excited about this, like around Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Hey. Good one.
so yeah, we're back. It's working. She's alive. I have mouse control. No big deal. We'll turn this back on. And that curve is gone.
Yeah, I don't like messing with my stuff. It's just something that I don't really need to do, and I don't want to have to worry about it. So I get it. I have good specs. I play games. Done.
Yeah, and for me on the laptop, it was all about just thermal performance and
Right.
making it so my wife isn't yelling at me because the laptop's too loud.
Like, that's why it's just funny looking into the Discord and seeing people talk about all this overclocking, and I have no clue what is going on half the time. So Leggy asked, how can I bother you to help me to get my system at 165 FPS? What game are you playing? What are we talking about? And then Christopher asked, are you only adjusting the voltage in one spot, or does it affect the whole curve when you move the slider?
When you hit Control L and you lock it in, that will be the frequency and voltage that it is locked at. That's what that's for. That's just the quick and dirty way of doing it. And you're not going to run MSI Afterburner in the background all the time just when you're gaming. That's a fantastic way to do that. It's very easy. It's quick. It's easy to wrap your head around. You could install, let me throw GPU-Z on here real quick, and then we should probably get out of here. But this is a really neat tool, so you can see exactly what your system is doing for your GPU and the voltage that it is pulling. So bear with me a hot second here, but this will not take long.
So for that with Fortnite, that's something that maybe next week we can kind of show off some Fortnite stuff now that we know it's super demanding. Because right now it's kind of hard to say for something that we've never really like tested it on.
Mm-hmm. So here you go, GPU-Z. Where are we at here?
Oh, I could for sure watch videos and like do undervolting or overvolting or anything like that. It's just I never really worry about it. Maybe eventually.
There it is, GPU voltage. And you can actually click on it. It'll give you a minimum. Click on it again, it'll say maximum. I can't expand the size of this, but just download it for yourself and you can see. So right now it's going to read whatever the maximum voltage this GPU pinged at any given time. And already it's at 0.9. If we were to game, may go a little bit higher than this. So by bringing this down to 0.8 or 0.7 or 0.750 is kind of one that I tend to gravitate towards, but I was trying to get a little extreme on both ends for you all. Something just to do a little trial and error, your own expectations of performance, temperatures, fan noise, all that is a personal preference. The tunability is there. We can break down some timestamps in this video so you can kind of see what some of that is should you need help. This applies easily to our laptops, but it will carry over to other machines as well. Whatever type of voltage and frequency I locked in on this 4080, many of you will be able to achieve that exact same thing on your 4080 mobile laptop. Some of you won't. It's the silicon lottery. Some of you may be able to do a lot better. I was not exactly pushing the limits of the system. I was just playing within a safe zone that I know most people will be able to achieve what you saw here today. So
Ninja said, actually I can kind of answer this. So the GP2 for like 3D modeling and CAD and stuff is actually really good. Even at home on my 3070, it's solid. And then even if I do it here, if I have downtime, it's super smooth. Everything's quick. I have no issues with that. And then when it comes to streaming Fortnite, that's something we'd have to really kind of sit down and figure out like what settings you're using in your either if you're using OBS or whatever you're using to stream it. That's something we'd have to figure out what settings you're using, and then understand what settings you're using in game as well. So it's kind of hard to say for right now. And then ASR James, invite own or disown, make discussion. Bob is good friends with own or disown, so that could maybe happen.
Yeah, we can invite him here.
True.
He's only an hour away.
Oh. There are, I mean, the one that I use, which is Fusion 360, is pretty demanding. Like, that's one of the ones that almost everybody uses, and I haven't had any issues with it yet, at least.
It is. I've used it before.
It's more than you may think, especially depending on like what model you have open or what you're designing. Yeah. I think, what's the other one? It starts with an S. SolidWorks. I think SolidWorks is a little bit more than Fusion.
Use that one.
So yeah, it also depends on what 3D software you're using for that.
Well, when you moved your mouse around, was it like very smooth? Yeah. And so that's kind of like when you start putting a lot of threads to it, you know, and you're moving the mouse around dimensionally, it's like really smooth. And I think that's what people like for that kind of stuff. But again, I mean, some people are okay with 60 FPS, some are okay with 30. Nothing wrong with that. It's whatever floats your boat, you know? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right. So.
You did have problems with it.
Yeah.
You're so patient with it, man. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, SolidWorks uses a special GPU. It's dumb how they do it, which is why I don't like using it. But I know a lot of people, because I designed robots, a lot of people do use SolidWorks, and you can tell when it's SolidWorks because it's really, really detailed. But yeah, any other questions before we end Strem? And that's what they said they did already, but it's because I didn't realize they were stream. Well, what? No, you gotta be able to see what you're doing. Maybe, but yeah. I mean, even if you go lowest settings in Fortnite, it also depends because you're also running your streaming software, which eats at your GPU and CPU. Right, that's what makes it a little bit more complicated to be able to figure out the best way to improve that.
What I always did, I don't know if this will help this individual, but that Riva Tuner overlay that I used, I would actually game, let's say, okay, cool, Fortnite. I'm going to play Fortnite all night with that running in the background. If you use like an NVEC encoder to do the stream, which is really efficient, and you're pushing the GPU to 99% utilization, you're going to have a big problem. What you want to do is you want to play that utilization game, and you want to drop that utilization to around 75 or 80%, and that'll give that NVEC encoder an extra 20 to 25% to work with. It's a weird example to show performance of a laptop that way, because we're actually pulling away some of the performance so you can leave headroom for the stream. But when you do it this way, you will have a excellent running stream. It'll run so smooth. Your viewers will like it. But if we want to showcase performance, probably not the best way to do it. But if you want to stream that game and you don't want any issues, that's an excellent way to do it. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, I can probably whip up something to show how that works. But
they asked, Fortnite is also using DirectX 11 and DirectX 12. What would you recommend, though?
I'd have to sit down and play each one for a couple of hours and see.
Next week, just do a little bit of Fortnite.
We talked about it enough today. I'm fine with that.
Okay. I mean, just like a little section, like next week, not all of it.
Yeah, you say that now.
Yeah, but we should probably. I think that'll be good, just because other people have asked about Fortnite, and then again, after playing it yesterday, I realized how much has changed and how demanding it is. So I think that'll be good.
It's pretty well optimized.
You know,
They got Unreal Engine 5 update.
Yeah, they just updated the engine, and it's like really intense now.
Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because I would get upper hundreds, like 150 plus, and then yesterday I was at maybe 110, and I didn't change anything.
1440p, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. It was kind of an eye opener. But all right, if there's no more questions, then I think we're gonna end here.
So
Definitely. We may break this video up into sections and have its own release on the channel just to help guide people for thermal tuning, since there was a lot covered here today. Could be pretty useful. So be on the lookout for that. And obviously, if you have any questions after this stream has processed, then we can go ahead and answer some of those, of course, if we missed them over the weekend. So thank you very much for your time. And yeah, look forward to seeing you next Friday.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Thanks.